Okay, so this video is just about a video or videos or almost anything on the internet that remotely explains the matrix that's around real people, or people that are not part of the matrix, or people who people that the matrix seeks to control. Now, at this moment when I'm making the video, I am being controlled by what's around me, or the matrix, because you know, if your body has been affected by the people around you, in other words, they have consciously and deliberately made you sick through their negative activities, you know, destructive actions towards you over a long period of time. It's what they called covert narcissism, which simply means where the resentment and contempt and envy of you just trying to live your life without them, more or less, because you're not part of the matrix. So plane going over as I say that. So that's just showing that plane is a matrix plane. That plane is a answering what I'm saying. Now, many people would say that is a real control matrix you're talking about. Well, it is, because, you know, like my body is in pain while I'm making the video. The plane is acknowledging that what I'm saying is true, but it's not acknowledging it as a supportive, friendly gesture. That is a military operated, mind controlling plane. Now, that might sound out of what is a possibility, but it's not, because it happens all the time. The plane comes over more as it's an adversary. It comes over to acknowledge what you're saying, but also another one is coming to, but I won't go for it because it's trying to distract me as well, because it's a game. Now, well, I will show it just to, will I or will I not? I can hear it, but actually it's, the fella's just getting out the car in front. Just see, that's a matrix. See how just as soon as I come out and the car pulling right in front, see, that fella got out the car in front, doesn't belong there, and that car is just pulled right in front as soon as I come out, because I didn't know I was going to come out. In fact, as you could see, the plane was behind that tree, so I couldn't actually film it. But these people are all psychopathic stalkers. If you really could actually read their mind, as I say, but their actions speak for their mind. Like if someone is stalking, patrolling and trying to control you, when I say someone, this is not someone, because this is a whole system, a whole area, a whole suburb. And while I'm speaking right now, the mobile will not pick this sound up, but there is a grating technical noise coming into my ears. But it is real. It's just that the mobile won't pick it up until they make that sound really loud. Not where my ears pick it up to where, but also where the mobile can pick it up, which means it has to be really loud. It was loud before I just turned the mobile on, but they turned it down as soon as I turned the mobile on. But it's a game for them. It's anything to distract you, to make me look foolish, to make me look, see, to make me look foolish. The plane is acknowledging, making fun of me. To say, look, see, over the roof, you know, over the roof, as soon as I say that. Of course, they're getting energy out of me while I'm making a video. I'm going to close that door because the planes will go over every time I say something that is true, but also it's like mockery. It's like we're a military controlling plane. The military is like the army, a human controlling army, and they're a real army too. They're the real army of, you know, this area or this country, you know, and the world too, because although it's not generally known, it is a world matrix. Even though it looks segregated, looks like different places, different countries, different areas. But of course that is another thing too, that the internet is trying to integrate everyone together, because they essentially do want a world control matrix system. It already exists, it's just that it's like the people around. Everything is done what they call covert or covert narcissism, covert psychopathy, covert psychopaths, covert Luciferian belief system. But essentially, if you put it just simply, it's really like these videos will show, and the noise is coming into my ears, but the mobile won't pick it up until they make it loud to distract me, because they don't want me to make a decent video. They want the Android, artificial AI human beings to make the professional, more listened to videos, like the one I'm going to play. Every video I play or I will listen to, without exception, is of the Matrix, is of the Luciferian belief system, is a seductive, controlling, covert, pretend truth teller, pretend support or friend or enlightenment giver, or look, all the words, whatever you want to use, philosopher. Look, you can use all the terms you want for all these artificial ones. The internet is just an artificial AI system, 100%. The ones I call the demigods, they're the more sort of popular or successful ones that cover the internet. But that's just in varying degrees, because like I say, their whole aim is really only to control real human beings. You know, they're not trying to control the vast majority. even though that's what it looks like, but don't forget that will depend on the area you're living in. See, in the area where I am, there are no real human beings. They're all machine, artificial beings, pretending to be real-life human beings, copying and mimicking the best qualities of a real-life human being. The plane is going over as I say that, but I'm not going to run for it. I'm not going to do that because I'm losing too much energy. The mobile won't pick up that it's going over, because you see, this is the end time deception, and this is something that when you see it, it's disturbing, and it seems futile to even be speaking about it, because it's something that can't be stopped, because it's already happened and they have too much control. In fact, you know, really, if you put it down realistically, you could only really be an individual person that was able to isolate themselves from even most human contact, unless you can find another real human being. And that will depend on where you are, what the numbers game is in your area where you are trying to live. You know, so that will... But on the internet, it is a futile game or a futile idea to think that there is any truth. Oh, I mean, it's all truth in the sense that you will get your truth tellers. They're all over it. I play the videos that will tell you exactly the character and the mindset of most people. And they will be... The only thing is they won't be telling you that 9 out of 10 people are psychopathic, that it's a reverse world and that it's the end game, so basically things are not what you think, until it becomes openly exposed to you, as it has to me, where you realise that you're in a totally controlled military zone area, where everyone and everything in that area is part of a game about patrolling and trying to control you covertly, so that you can't expose it, so that you can't explain it to anyone, because it's like saying, well, everyone's a stalker. Everyone's in on the surveillance. Everyone is trying to harm you physically and mentally. They are the paranoid ones, because they are stalking, patrolling and trying to mentally control your mood, because they know that frequency and vibration of the human being controls the reality, because everything is frequency, vibration and energy. But at a practical level, you can't prove that. And if you try to prove it, instead of the paranoid artificial android beings that are controlling, psychopathic in nature, that are all around, that are paranoid because they are paranoid about controlling your frequency and vibration and the energy you give out, be it good or not so good. You see, they want you to give out negative energy so they can copy you and be the best version of a human being, so they get all the attention, they have all the influence, they have all the control over real life, or anyone that you say might or should be connected to. Instead, you're surrounded and controlled by the android artificial beings that are part of the matrix. When I say part of the matrix, that just means that they're part of this controlling reality. They agree with the military armed forces controlling an area, and everything is controlled in areas. Like mine is the inner west, which is a certain number of suburbs. But in another area it would be another number of suburbs that will probably be controlled that same way around real humans, depending on how many there are. But it doesn't matter, because even if I was the only human being in Leichhardt, or real human being that has the potential for positive and negative emotions, in other words, all emotions, all feelings, because a human being is the centre of things for that reason, only for that reason. Also, a human being, is connected to reality or real life or creation, whereas artificial beings are a technical form of existence. They exist to control real life. That's how they create. They create the reality they want through controlling real life human beings, unbeknownst to most real life human beings, just as it was unbeknownst to me before 6 years ago, when they openly opened themselves up by coming down on me. Because in order to openly show that every vehicle and every person is stalking and patrolling and trying to bring you down at an emotional level, which then brings you down and takes your energy, because, if you're surrounded by stalkers, they're consuming your energy, as you can imagine, because you're going to focus on them. You can't ignore when cars are pulling in front of you and pulling out in front of you and blinking their lights at you and making aggressive noises as they go past. You can't ignore all these things. You can only ignore so much, because your senses are what make you a human being, in Earth. That's what it's all about. You're meant to surround your senses with pleasant things. You're meant to communicate with pleasant people. You're not meant to communicate with psychopathic, narcissistic, personality, android type beings that basically will befriend you only to passively, aggressively mind control you, to play that game on you. They're basically passive aggressive, negative beings, negative people that only enjoy chaos, only enjoy when things are a mess, only enjoy when things are not stable or very peaceful. That is this video. If I just play a bit of it, even though it is a demigod video, of course they're all demigods or serving the matrix. Some are more successful than others. It depends on how many human beings they can get to watch and believe what they're saying, or at least agree with what they're saying, because most like myself, if I turn these videos on, I only believe and know that what they're saying is true because it happens to me in my personal life. It happens around me at a matrix level. And notice they've gone quiet now because they don't want to. If I turn this mobile off, they will start up with loud noise next door. They've got the work all lined up with all the fake activities and the fake work they do by the forces that are around me. They are, I pick up the words to use the description from the demigods and from videos, because I have to find words to put it into a video. See how there's a fella over there as soon as I come? See, look at all these people piling up around here just as soon as I come out. When I say piling up, like they're just there, aren't they? Like, see how there's a patroller over there just right in front of me with a mobile, and these three here right in front, just standing in the middle of the road too as soon as I come out, because they know that I am watching them, because they're paranoid android artificial beings. See how they're just standing there, and then one walk. It looks quiet. Actually, this is quiet because they could normally have huge sound going next door. They did just, like just before I turned the mobile on. And when I turn it off, no doubt that will be the case. But you know, I'm just showing that. But you see, other people will just say, well, that's random. But it's not random because it happens everywhere. You're never alone. There's always people around. See, the plane is acknowledging what I'm saying. The military plane is going over as soon as I say that. Can you see it? There we go. They are 3 military operatives over there standing in the middle of the road in plain clothes, even though they are all wearing black, which is appropriate because they are black, dead in the sense that they are not real life. They do not have anything positive or remotely creative in a way that a human being would consider like an ideal way to live or a way to create happiness. These dead, dark android beings, android type beings who are psychopathic and narcissistic like Lucifer, which is why we have those personality types, are essentially what is controlling most around. And the plane is going over to acknowledge the where is it? It's deceived me, that plane, because can you hear it? It's behind the tree there. It normally goes right over the roof. That's just to play me so I look silly, which is why I'm not going to come out for the planes anymore, because basically I'm draining my energy and I do have to try to survive too. They're survival machines who are paranoid in nature, which is why they watch and patrol human beings like a cat watching a mouse, and they play that same game that a cat does with a mouse, if you know what I mean. They don't make themselves obvious by, you know, they toy with the mouse, and they do that subtly so that way they can get away with their activities, and so that I look as though I'm the paranoid one. This is the reverse world, you see. So I look paranoid because I go out there showing the military planes that go over. I try to film the noise as it happens, but unfortunately they turn it, because they know what you're already going to do. And even if they were like just watching me and they were like a few seconds behind, they would still be in front of me, because when I go to get the mobile, they can turn the sound off because they can see what I'm doing. But they actually do know what you're going to do before you do it, because they read the whole human mind, and the human mind can see forward, past, present and future to a certain degree. And because they have connected, the technology has connected to most of the real human mind. Now, whether this has been done with the advent of the computer and unbeknownst to us, or whether it is just that our abilities are suppressed and they use their abilities for the nefarious, what you'd say, nefarious action of controlling human beings. So you can use abilities, as I've been told, for any purpose you want. You don't have to always use an ability, you know, for betterment. If you have a dark nature, you can use it for dark motives, and that's essentially what happens. Because you know, that's the reality they like. You know, as this video will, if I just play a bit of it, because also I like the actual voiceover on this, because if you actually listen, it also is a duality being, and the duality message is clear, but you will probably, like myself, when you first listen, you won't see the duality in the motive or even in the voice. You will see it, you won't pick up the negative aspect or the nefarious undertones. You'll pick up the positive vibes, because it's informing you and helping you and supportive in its agreement with you that, you know, you could be dealing with those limited number of people, supposedly, that have the psychopathic narcissism in their person. Or, if you want to take it to what is a lot more accurate, in their nature, or in their very essence, because they are a different type of human being completely. It probably doesn't matter if you're talking about a human being that just for whatever reason turns psycho, but that's probably more of a deception most of the time. Most of the time. Maybe even all the time. Depends on how much I am deceived, you know. And I'm pretty much sure that I'm nearly totally deceived, so I have almost 99.9% evidence to that. But being a human being who does have an inclination and a want to live in a more positive world and to see positivity in other people, because I can't tolerate continual negativity like I have around me. It's almost like a dream to hear something that is negative from someone, or not to be interacting with negative energy from a human being. At the very best, I deal with fake psychopathic types that pretend to be nice for a short period of time in order to elicit your trust and you know, seduce you into their into interacting with you with them more, and essentially sort of trusting that perhaps it's not all as negative as what you know it really is. So it's a mind game played against me, which I'm aware of, but still fall for it, because you're desperately wanting to believe that it isn't as bad as what it is, because then you realise that it may be a hopeless situation. And it's like this internet, to realise that 99.9% of what is on it is, you know, even when you're listening to a truth teller, telling you the truth about other negative human beings, supposedly, that the psychopath is telling you about and warning you against a psychopath. You know, an android being that is an artificially intelligent being that is only about survival, a machine survival being, or a narcissistic personality type human, one in the same type, one in the same being, is informing you about this, telling you to listen to them, telling you that they offer you support, maybe even counselling or therapy. It doesn't matter. Even if you're listening to them, you're giving them your energy, you're giving them your trust, you're giving them your admiration, even whether you're conscious of it or not. And that is energy. You as a human being like me, are being depleted of our energy. It's going to the matrix, it's going to the artificial beings, it's going to psychopaths, it's going to people that will only turn your positive energy into negative energy, which will then go right back into my body and cause me to become negative while they extract the positive energy and they can fake being a positive human being. And that's how the game works. And the internet is 100% that. The door banged did you hear the door slam? My door slammed as I said that, because that's the game. That's how human beings, and that's how I've been fooled, even as I became aware of the matrix and the control people around me. How could I not become aware when they openly show me? They don't care that they openly show me, and this is what, I've been explaining for the last few years. They don't care because they know that if I say that everyone is part of this patrol force, or this patrol control force around me, which is secretive in the sense that if I say that every vehicle is a stalking, patrolling, aggressive, covert aggressive vehicle driven by an android being, or even human beings that are psycho, that enjoy being sadistic towards a non-sadistic human being, shall we say, because essentially that's how they thrive, because they're negative beings that like and need to suppress and control and extract energy from human beings. That's how they survive. And if I say those things, the paranoid artificial beings, or the paranoid psychopathic narcissistic personality types that predominate now and congregate in particular areas around human beings, so that way they have the numbers game against real life. Because if you have every person in an area, almost without exception, part of and collaborating together to negatively control and influence and affect, like myself, if I say that, these paranoid artificial beings, they don't look paranoid, I look paranoid. Because, yourself, in reality, it's what the majority thinks that counts. Even at a psychiatric level, a medical doctor will tell you what the majority hold to be a fact or normal is what is regarded as normal and acceptable and correct. So even though the real truth and the real reality is that they are patrolling in a collaborative joint effort, and that most in the area over time have brought in their own kind to surround me, in reality, because the majority rules, and because I am outnumbered in an area, basically, to where everyone is part of this control system, they believe in it, and they enjoy the chaos that's around. They don't want a human being to have control over their reality, because they don't like positive human emotions. They don't, a psychopathic type of person doesn't believe in those things. They mimic them, they copy them, they pretend to enjoy them, they pretend to be them. But in reality, that's only to seduce and to control and to influence and to have power over others. But in reality, they don't feel those positive emotions at all. In fact, they are like negative emotions to them. They annoy them to such an extent that they feel that they have to control a real human being who is seeking a little bit of peace and who is trying to make a pleasant reality, who enjoys, a positive type of happiness, as opposed to these negative beings around that are only happy. Like now, with the plane just about to go over and I can hear banging next door, they're only happy creating unpleasant, chaotic surroundings. They thrive in what these demigods or the so-called truth tellers on the internet will tell you is a dysfunctional environment. They are dysfunctional android type beings, and therefore they can only survive in a chaotic, dysfunctional environment. They don't want peace. You know, the joke of these people that promote peace, that talk about it, that want to do good in every area of the world, they do not like that at all. It's dysfunction, and only when things are always full of chaos and problems and everyone is unhappy that they thrive. They are, while a real human is like myself, disorientated, unhappy, and physically and mentally suppressed, and even very uncomfortable, and even, shall we say, without being dramatic, because it's so, to be in physical pain and suffering, they are thriving. That to them is like a human being would be when they are feeling, one with everything and in love with everything. They're the opposite to that. They're in contempt of everything. They dislike everything. But that makes them feel good then to be in that environment with others, because it's a bit like, because they're very competitive beings and they're controlling beings, as you can imagine, if you're a controller, that means you're competitive. You see envy and competition everywhere around you. They see real life human beings as deliberately competing with them. Whereas in reality, of course, the real life humans like myself want to keep away from them. That's if you're aware. But essentially, you're not trying to deliberately suppress another human being or other human beings. I'm not saying that real life human beings can't feel those negative emotions too, but it just depends on whether you cross the line, I would think, from contempt and envy into, total narcissism, which is like total self-absorption, total self-survival at all cost, regardless of what you have to do for that survival, even though most of the time you are doing very negative things, not for survival. Your survival is not under threat. You're doing it merely for the pleasure of it, and that's probably the difference. Because I think that everyone, when they're under pressure for survival, I know they've put me in the survival mode over the last 6 years. So therefore your standard does drop. It's natural, because you're like, that me or them mentality comes into being. But in reality, most of the types that are around know that they are doing it because they enjoy it, not because their survival depends on it, but merely because it keeps them content, them happy to see suffering of real life. And it makes them feel superior because of their competitive, envious nature. It's in their being, it's in their programming, you could say. And it doesn't matter whether it was created, like whether you're a total artificially intelligent android being that's simply made that way and therefore what could you expect, or whether you're a human being who has turned psycho because of allowing negative environmental circumstances, you know, in your developmental years, shall we say, to turn you into a defensive, anti-life human being, where you essentially, you know, are trying to reverse what's been done to you. It's like, I mean, like, you know, yourself, and we've heard this said by the demigods, even though the demigods are essentially psychopathic, narcissistic, android demigods, or people, what appear to be normal, real people, telling you about psychopathic types of human beings, or those that are more cold and negative, and even what we would call vengeful in their nature. You know, like if you're a very paranoid, defensive, hurtful human being that seeks revenge for what you feel has hurt you, even though you know, like if you think about it, this is hurt from developmental, so a lot of the time it's hurting people that are nothing to do with those, because normally you would say that if someone causes you an injury or has that would be the source of your vengeance. But with psychopathic types of people, they take out their vengeance for past pain and hurt, assuming that it is a childhood trauma thing. And I would say that most human beings are subject to, you know, negative childhoods and traumas. Some might be more extreme than others, but also the personality type of, you know, your own personality will deal with traumas in a different way. We know this. That's just the individual people that deal differently with the same circumstances. And I guess that's, you know, the difference between human beings that yes, do become vengeful and contemptible of other human beings for no legitimate reason, like nothing in relation to the present time, or if it is in the present time, they're paranoidly seeing a reason to seek revenge for past, you know, things that have been done to them. So as you can see, it's all out of touch, but real life human beings are having to now be surrounded by these, you know, these individual psychopaths that have also either jointly collaborated in a community effort around human beings, or allowing even then other individual psychopathic types of human beings to, at a personal level, cause havoc in the lives of human beings in their personal relationships. It's both, of course. And also then there's the bigger picture of the military psychopathic android machine beings that at a workforce level, or at a community level, or at a city level even, combine, or are part of the armed forces, the military psychopathic controlling armed forces, which you know, go undercover in their operations around human beings. You know, like I've mentioned this before, if all the construction that goes on around an area, astronomical construction where the workforce just pops up in front of you on the road making noise as you go past, you know, the military planes that just going overhead now, which I'm not going to run out to show. Because don't forget, even low, me going out there and showing that, you know, that the neighbourhood watch beings, which neighbourhood watch is a legitimate program, by the way. It's just that most people don't realise that neighbourhood watch is not just about just keeping a little bit of an eye on your neighbourhood. It is actually a patrolling, stalking, 100% stalking program around real life human beings. So they're not just watching to see that your house doesn't burn down, they are watching your every move. You know, completely monitoring with vehicles around you all the time, people around you all the time. Someone is always in your line of sight. A vehicle is always taking up your sight. They will use whatever they can. If you try to go to a remote area where it's not possible for them to have, like at least one person in your line of sight at any time, or at least a vehicle, or the sight and sound show as has been described, always around you. In other words, to where you always see or hear a negative noise, or to where you're conscious of a stalker being walking past you, or crossing over in front of you, or a car pulling in and out, and you're aware that all the activities are staged, that they're, which is so very obvious once you see it and once you're aware of it. Even low, to an outsider, if they're not aware of this program, until it's exposed to you, until they come down on you, it would look reasonably random and normal. Even low, a human being should be able to actually realise that it's a system around them. If a human being had their full mind, even regardless of everything I say, if you had your full mind, you would see that the traffic is too systematic to your sight and sound. You would see that it is a program. You would see that it is not random. You would see that the cars are too many in a certain spot, that they're coming, always pulling around in front of you when you look there, that they're literally circling around you, even though it looks as though it's random and natural. So you can't really, the matrix is there, but because you're not looking for it, and because you don't believe that's possible, and because most of your mind is preoccupied with other things, your mind is not clear. You're not really focused totally on the environment. Of course I am now. I'm drawn into their program around, but they like that because that makes me then, that's right, feeling paranoid, feeling confined, feeling controlled, feeling trapped. Plane is going over as I say that. Feeling trapped because they don't want me to be an individual free person that can raise my frequency and vibration, or in other words, just feel like a normal, halfway content human being getting about my business, because they know that I'm someone that can do that. Some people need a lot more going on in their life to be content, and that's okay too. But the artificial ones, or psychopathic people, need a lot going on, but it has to all be dysfunctional and negative. It can't be happiness. It can't be to where they're exchanging positive vibrations with other human beings, or even the environment. It has to be where there's always, like, it's gone quiet now, but see, normally that work being a Monday, normally the work would be really loud, and it probably will be as soon as I turn the mobile off. But you know, but there's at least a cool breeze. And the sun is breaking through. It is actually going to break through, even though it's quite cloudy. But it's all gone quiet now, see, because, you know, but either way, you know, I have 24 hours in a day. So even though, you know, like I say, you know, this is a small dead-end street, and if you understood the practicalities of Leichhardt and even an area, and if you'd lived here, you know, it's not something I can show because it has to be to where you understand what an area should be like. You have to understand that if you had, like, I could just use practical examples, but it would make sense if you believe that this was true. It's like if you say, well, look, there's always people in the park, whereas in the past, there was hardly anyone ever in the park whenever I walked through there. But now they're not only in the park, but wherever my eyes go in the park, there will be someone sitting on the grass, someone on the play equipment, someone, and they'll be perched in all unusual spots where in the past, no one would ever even sit. That's another thing too, because they're there to get into your line of sight so that you can't prove that you're being patrolled and stalked. But they know that you know, because they know that if they were a normal human being, they wouldn't just perch themselves randomly on the brick wall of the fence on the outside of the park for no reason. Also, the way that they even loiter around too, like in the past year, this loitering, you know what loitering is? Stalking. It's actually, a demigod actually said that. You know, like if you stand around just doing nothing on the street, of course the mobile is a good excuse for them these days to just stand and pretend to be on the mobile, when in reality they're standing there and just looking around and waiting for you to come up so that you're aware of their presence. And actually they are blatant loiterers and stalkers. But you still, because you don't know them personally, and supposedly they don't know you personally, you have no grounds for saying to the authorities that that person is a stalker, because they're part of a psychopathic community control system around you. You've become what they call in psychology terms their scapegoat, their reason to vent their anger, their target for their anger, for their need to be aggressive, for their need to have a dysfunctional environment, so that they can create this cat and mouse game that they do with human beings to make them unhappy because of their competitive, you know, android nature, which is based on narcissism, which is based on, you know, total self, you know, a machine-like mentality of total self-absorption, self-survival, anything, end justifies the means for your survival. Nothing and no one else exists except you. This is the machine android mindset, or even a psychopathic mindset. But it's not just about survival, and this is where I draw the line, or don't, you know, where you should not be allowing your natural kind of association with another human being, particularly if you know them or you feel obligated, to where your association or your natural inclination towards a little bit of compassion or understanding leads you down the path of deception, as it's done with me, to where you think to where you think, see, that noise distracted me next door, that mechanical sound next door distracted me, the mobile won't pick it up. But to where you think that, you know, that you know, their need for survival and their, you know, their selfishness is justified, or that you can understand how it's occurred because of circumstances. And, you know, it'd be like when they would perhaps, as a desperation move, say that their childhood and their traumas are the reason why they've turned sour and don't trust and are negative towards you, and that they do operate at a survival mentality. But you see, that selfish thing, which I use that word and I sound like a demigod, and I don't, you know, there's nothing wrong with being selfish. You know, it may not be the best person to be involved with if you're having a personal relationship, no. But selfishness, it doesn't stop with selfishness with these beings. You know, they're paranoid, they're selfish, and their survival machine mentality. But they don't think like a human being. They're not selfish to create a more peaceful or happy environment for themselves. No, it's not that kind of selfishness. In fact, that kind of selfishness actually benefits real life. So perhaps it's, if a normal human being is selfish with the correct aims, or the correct wanting, you know, to create some sort of happiness, actually it is a benefit to the whole earth, because the frequency and vibration then would be higher, would rise, you see. But you see, with the artificial ones or psychopathic narcissistic beings, basically that selfishness, you know, means that they want to create a environment the opposite to that. They have to have a negative environment. They have to have where they're getting, where they're creating what we call chaos. That word is used a lot, and it just simply means they want dysfunction. They want unhappiness. They feed off the distress of real human beings and everything around them, because it makes them feel better then, because it makes them feel superior. Because if you're dysfunctional and you know you're a negative person, you know you cannot love anything, you cannot appreciate anything, you cannot really enjoy pleasant surroundings or pleasant company or pleasant people. It offends you and upsets you and makes you feel uncomfortable. It imbalances the mind of an imbalanced person to have function or to have correct order. Their idea of control is chaos. Their idea of control is controlling you so that you are unhappy, and they create chaos, unhappiness in you, so that makes them content. They feel comfortable then because they've got control of the environment, they've got control of you. But more importantly, it makes them feel superior because they're, you know, because of the what we call the narcissism in their nature, the envy and the competitive contempt they have for everything and everyone. Basically, you know, they have their only way of feeling superior, because narcissism is essentially about being, number one, totally that you're the only one exists. It's like a godlike mentality, as has been described by the psychopaths telling you about psychopaths, even though most of them won't openly acknowledge that they are psychopathic beings, or if truth be told that they're simply artificially intelligent android advanced beings that are deciphering human thought and ideas, like artificial intelligence deciphering human thought through technology, because they are technology, they're machine beings, deciphering human thought because they have been able to connect with the human mind and read all the human mind. Like my entire mind has is being translated right now onto the internet every day. But nobody knows that it's my thoughts or my mind. It is being spoken through the mouths of the demigods or anyone who is anyone, literally, on the internet. I don't think I'm explaining this very well. See, this is the name of the game, is that the android machine artificial beings will say all this much more eloquently and better than me. And people will believe them and trust them. And I'm sort of like living in a suppressed, controlled environment around me every day, where no one knows that I exist. Sure, I'm making this video, but, you could put out 1 million videos. I can go outside and scream it in the streets, but no one's going to hear it because no one's watching, no one's listening. They're listening to either those that are around me on the streets, where they're, spreading the word, shall we say, which is what, we're told that even psychopathic, narcissistic people do. They spread the, a campaign around the streets, basically belittling your character or your mind so that no one would be interested in listening to you. Must be believing that they are the instigators of belittling you by doing that, but also because they're controlling you in a stalking manner daily. But real people would not believe that or see it. And that's like, it's how can you prove it when they've got it all down to a fine heart, as they say? You can't prove it, and no one's listening anyway, because I can't get, at the very least, if I'm, the only one that really believes what I'm saying, but no one's listening because the internet is taken over by, the others, that although they're speaking the truth and informing you of what is close to the reality, they don't actually believe that because they are part of that. Like I say, if you have a psychopath warning you about other psychopathic people, or like a friend that tells you to avoid someone else because they're negative, but that friend is really your enemy as well, or maybe even more of an enemy, and that's essentially how it is. That's what it is. And then, if you have these psychopathic types of people telling other people that you have, that you're paranoid, when it's really them that are paranoid because they're the ones stalking and spreading falsities about you around. Because in reality, I wouldn't be concerned about anyone around me if they weren't patrolling and stalking me, because I basically just prefer to get about my own business, and they know that too. But if they can make it look as though you're the problem as opposed to them instigating that problem, you know. Like, of course I'm paranoid if I am truly being stalked. But if I can't prove that I am truly being stalked, then of course what the stalkers say about me becomes more real to anyone who's listening. You know, the paranoid stalkers say, well, look, she's paranoid. Because why would everyone in an area be stalking her? You know. And of course, if I am being stalked by most people, yes, of course, I am always looking around because I'm always aware of the stalkers around me. So they make you hyper-vigilant like themselves. They reverse it round. This is the name of the game. You become in the same mindset as them. In fact, they're happy doing that because they want you to feel their uncomfortableness. They're how they are. They don't want you to feel at peace and be a normal human being and live your life. They want you to feel paranoid and hyper-vigilant and even angry, which you're going to be if you're stalked and if you're being harmed physically and mentally. And you can't prove it. You can do nothing about it. You can't stop negative energy weapons hitting your body if they're invisible and if they're coming from houses and from places around. You can't stop the negative energy that even comes to you just by your interactions with these people, or even your awareness that they are stalking and patrolling you. When you see them, when they are flicking their lights at you daily, when you've got blinding lights in your eyes of a night time from every vehicle so that you can hardly see what's in front of you. This is the reality. This is actually the reality for me. I mean, in what reality should cars be allowed to have lights that as a pedestrian you can't even look properly? They're in your eyes. And these lights are allowed. In this area anyway. Now, whether they, after they've gone past me, whether they turn the lights down or don't have those lights on is another story, isn't it? But of course, I can't prove that because I can only speak on what cars are in my line of sight. You know, in fact, that means that their game is really good if that's the case, because if they only do it when they come past me, no one else is going to care about it, are they? Because it's not going to exist for them. If they're not, if everything is not being used against them blatantly 24/7 like it is in this area, then they're not only not going to believe it, but they're not going to worry about it or care about it. You know, it's what affects each person. And don't forget that no one knows me. I've been isolated and segregated, so, and the plane is going over as I say that. I have been isolated and segregated. I'm just going to fold up here, but look, as I say that, the military plane is saying, yes, you are. And they think it's a joke. And it is, the joke's on me. And, you know, even this, you know, like, it's quiet, like I say, while I'm making this, because they don't want me to show every time I turn the video on that there is a noise program around here, even low. You know, like if they've got major construction going on all over the place, it would be, you know, it would be reasonable anyway, you see. So they have it sort of covered. The whole game that is played in this reality, you know, is a game, like I say, that you can't prove, you can't do anything about it. You're not validated, so therefore you're frustrated and makes you more angry. Then even your own anger goes back into your own body, as well as receiving all the aggressive anger from all the patrollers, the stalkers around the military base area that covers the inner west in the area where I am, which is the inner west, which is many suburbs, where basically it's a total system, everyone's part of it because it's their life, it's their living, and it's in their nature to enjoy this for most of them. I'm just going to play this video, and this is telling you about the personality types, but it's the reality. It shows the because even if you had like if you have even if you had real humans that have the same personality and agree on the same goals and have the same interests, supposing you have people that have a negative mindset and that enjoy being sadistic and controlling on other people, and they can't find enough personal relationships to enter into to where they get enough negative energy or enough satisfaction from controlling it. But they live in an area where they see someone living in a house like myself and their neighbours and people around, and they just decide that this will now be our game, this will be our source of negative pleasure for them, because it gives them satisfaction. It makes them feel superior because they're like, we don't like the fact that she doesn't need us to feel okay. So we're going to make sure that she doesn't feel okay, because the only way that we feel okay is when we feel better than her. And the only way we can feel better than her is to make her feel really bad, because we don't enjoy just enjoying peace. We can't enjoy just living and just going outside and say, hey, it's not a bad day today, perhaps I'll just get about my few simple activities and everything's okay. They're dysfunctional, anti-life, angry people, or psychopathic, narcissistic types of personality types, if you want to boil it down to what we think are a small percentage of human beings. In reality, at the least, they make up all or most of the population in certain areas. But allowing for the reality that most are also android machine survival beings, or survival machine beings. That's the description, and it simply means that that's their whole purpose of life, is merely to survive and eliminate anything which threatens that survival. And if their mentality is competitive and they're been programmed with narcissism, extreme narcissism, which means then extreme envy and competitive and contempt for everything that's around, because they see everything as in competition with their ego or their narcissism. Therefore, everything is a threat to them, so therefore they are paranoid. They are paranoid then machine. They are then paranoid survival machine beings that are essentially destructive in nature towards anything which they see as a threat to them, or to their ego, or their narcissism, or their survival. But this simply means that everyone or anyone that isn't them is a threat to them. And particularly a normal human being that seeks pleasure in happiness or in a peaceful environment, that is completely alien to them. That is the reverse of what they consider to be peace or happiness. That is a huge threat to them, because even if they don't understand the reality that everything is frequency and vibration and energy, and that, yes, they're not capable of high frequency and vibration or energy, because it's not what they enjoy, it's not what they are are comfortable with, and they actually see that as a threat to their environment. They see that as a threat to their narcissism, to their ego. And it is actually a threat to their reality in the sense that because everything is frequency and vibration and energy, and that only a real human has the potential for all frequencies and vibrations and energy. In other words, you can either be brought up or you can be brought down, or you can be happy or you can be sad, depending on what comes into your senses. Like the plane going over, see? But I'm not going to go out to get it. But the plane going over is a negative noise. But also the awareness that it's a military-controlled airline, as opposed to just a regular plane going anywhere. But even the fact that it goes right over the roof, which means that's and also that's not a big jet. Most of the time they have the big jet, so you get that really loud, noise that a jet makes, and it sort of pierces your ears a bit, if you know what I mean. But that's actually, if it was just the jets or the aeroplanes, I would be on cloud 9. And they'll probably use that term cloud 9, by the way, the demigods or those on the thing, because that's another thing I noticed. The minute I turn the computer on, or a video or anything on, they will use words and anything that you say or think in order to combine, because don't forget, this is also at a bigger level a transhuman takeover. What so-called theorists would say is transhuman takeover, but it's not a theory, it's a fact. In fact, when they tell you theories and say these things, if you really thought about it, you'd say, well, of course it's a fact, because, we've got computers. And if you realise that everything is at least 40 or 50 years behind what they're really doing, because like even at medical levels and things, like I've mentioned this so many times before, because I became aware of it a few years ago when all this happened. Even though I was completely ignorant and have never looked into anything, uneducated, and basically not been interested in theories about anything, or even basically I'm very only interested in a few simple things that I might be interested in, which would probably be considered quite superficial, even though, in the past. But at any rate, plane going over, as I say that, but, I've been forced to take an interest in things that I normally wouldn't, but, that has mysteriously fell off the side of the house. I don't think that anything is mysterious. I think they, like, I would not put it past, anyone. And considering that they're doing major construction next door, it would be very simple for someone to get up on a ladder and just pull that right off the side of the house. But of course, getting the landlord to actually come and put it back so that the entire place isn't threatened by the elements, I've had no luck at all. And that's also not something that would be practical, but basically it just shows that I'm in a controlled area where they're reneging on everything and creating more stress and anxiety. I can't tell you the amount of things over the last even few months where it's just been one thing after another, and they do that to keep you in that dysfunctional tension state, because then your frequency and vibration is low, your mood is low, you're unhappy, you feel controlled, you feel powerless to do anything about it, and you feel threatened too, because, as it's not just mentally, but as physically they can cause you great problems. all these things are bringing you down, and they're bringing a human being down, but it's making sure that the artificial intelligence stays on top and in control and is dominating not just the internet and therefore human beings, even if it's just through influence, but also your real environment and your body and your and therefore your state of mind. So it's artificial intelligence is essentially a form of mind control. It's mind control that until you see it firsthand, you're not really aware of it. You're only mildly conscious of it, and you don't realise that they're combining with your mind, plain going over as I'm saying that. So therefore, they are trying to create transhumanism, which means that the computer combines with humanity or a human mind so that they have control over the reality and they keep you confined. Computer and AI technology is all about confining a human being, whereas if a human being knew that their mind was really being transferred onto the computer and then relayed back to them, you would say, hey, is the computer really a service to me, or a servant to me, or a benefit to me, or am I a slave to the computer just using me and having a good laugh, which is like, the beings and the people that are all around me. They know that they are essentially, in a way, inferior, but to make themselves feel superior or feel okay, they are only happy in an environment where they make you inferior, where they have control over you. And because they see everything as competition, basically everything makes them feel inferior, even if you were not. It doesn't matter whether what you're doing really, but essentially, at a basic level, they don't have potential for any happiness anyway, and they don't like it. So if you think that that is the ideal world and that's the ideal human state, as you can see, yes, there is that reality. But for them, it's just a source of competition, just something to take down, something to get on top of. So that, because the matrix is control, and artificial intelligence is just really all control. So I just had to have a break there for a second. I really need a drink, but I'm just going to play this thing here. I don't like making things loud, but this is a demigod or a speaker or a reader of the human mind. It's not just the tarot readers that are readers, or they read the human mind and then they interpret it and speak it clearly to where, you think that the computer is a benefit to you, or even a support and an information giver, or even an enlightenment, a philosopher, a psychologist that's out to help you. Beeping horns in the background that the mobile won't pick up, and a plane going over just as I say that, but I'm not showing the plane going over. I'm just going to play this. I hope it's in the right spot. It might just explain the mindset of an AI machine being, but also any real humans that are left that might have turned with a similar nature to the God of this reality, which is why, the God entity of this reality is supreme and even is an accepted God and was followed and has so many disciples right from the beginning of earth and before the earth, because many people even could sympathise and relate to this God's feelings or way of looking at things. Unfortunately, what people don't realise is that although we can all relate to feelings of inferiority and being suppressed and being outdone and, all these sorts of things, if you understood that this being, you are not getting common sympathy ground, you are not getting understanding. This is merely a manipulative tactic to control you, to seduce you, so that you are subservient to this God entity. It is not about relating with a real human being. If you were suppressed and if you were downtrodden in the reality to where you're like, oh, I have talents and I'm being exploited and I'm not given credit for my due input. Just like the computer stealing all the real human's thoughts and ideas and then projecting them back out onto the computer, so that, an example of that would be like if I was thinking and had a certain idea, but I can't physically put that idea into practice, because I'm surrounded by, a patrol force, or even if my circumstances are set up, or I don't have the resources or the know-how or meet the right people to where I can tell them a good idea or tell them the truth. But if the technology around me is reading my mind, the artificial intelligence is reading my mind, and then it gives it to a demigod on the computer, and they relay it back, then another human being that I should be collaborating with or should be talking to or should be getting support from is listening to that being and thinking that that being on the computer is a support for them, is telling the truth, is, understanding and relates to them, that they relate more to the being on the computer. That's just an example of how the internet takes over. But it is not a true support. It is not someone that you can relate to. It is a something that is using your thoughts to get you to relate to it, when it does not relate remotely to your suppressed circumstances, because it is part of the matrix that has contributed to your suppressive circumstances or your situation. Just as if you have a relationship with a psychopathic, narcissistic personality person. You know that interaction, at some point, the reality sets in that you've been conned and fooled by projecting your own positive emotions onto someone that does not experience them, does not like them, and actually abhors them even in you, but utilises them so that they can mimic and copy that and project it out so that it elicits sympathy, understanding and control over other human beings. Don't know if I put that right, but I might just play this. I'll just not show too much of the
to conceal that identity.
Conceal their identity, what they really are, that's right.
So the narcissist has to make things hard.
They make things hard for everyone.
So that they can overcome and take control of you. So that they can feel comfortable. if things are going well, they're unable to rest because of anxiety and boredom. They're not suited to that type of environment, and they become anxious.
And paranoid.
So they will deliberately create drama and chaos because it keeps you focused on trying to fix a problem
That they've
but
created.
it's a problem that you will never fix because it's not your problem.
Yeah, because they create those problems, and it's not your problem, it's their competitive nature and their need to control and their anxiety at not being able to control a real human being. And but even all these things, I'm not picking this, by the way, it's just coming up because I just make random little mobile things, but see, they mirror you. It's not just psychopaths that, mirror human beings and pretend to be everything that they really don't feel, or that they aren't really, because, like if you pretend to be friendly and loving towards, someone, but you really only have contempt and dislike for them, that's mirroring, you see. It's not real, it's false. But you have to do that in order to get control over them or to have any influence of them, or even just to have a relationship. But that's just putting it, simply. And the plane's going over as I said that, and I can't run out. I'm saying I'm stopping the video.